And YouTube, this is the Rye here. Welcome to my channel or stream if you're watching live. Today I wanted to, before we get started on our stream, which will be in about an hour or so, where we're going to be playing Lethal Company with some of our good friends, such as Highly and Vo. But before we get to that, I just want to make a quick short video to discuss something that has been at the center of attention when it comes to almost anything related to games, particularly live service ones. And if your first guess was Nerfs, you're correct. If your second guess was Nerfs, you're correct the second time. And if you're correct every single time about if the discussion will be about Nerfs, then your brain might honestly need to be nerfed because it's obviously too powerful. All jokes aside. So I think today we're going to kind of look into this on a bit more of a retroactive perspective. That's a bad way of saying it, but more of like a modern approach. So what I want to do is, given the context of the video and the title, we will be talking about Helldivers 2, obviously, because that's kind of been the center of attention quite a bit. But what we want to do is address what nerfs are, what game balance entails according to Wikipedia, because I think that's kind of a cool thing to look into. Secondly, I want to kind of give some examples of what I think are good nerfs, some bad nerfs, and then sort of mold that into like examples I can sort of think of, and then maybe some ideas of what you could do to fix them. To give context, however, I am somewhat of a casual gamer. Although I do play like quite a bit, I would say. So I would like to argue that my knowledge in the games that I play is definitely more than the average person. At least when it comes to Destiny 2, I would consider my knowledge of the game to be a lot more than just the base average. Not insulting anybody who, would be or would not be or whatever, anything like that. But that I only bring up because even though it's not in the title, I do plan to bring Destiny as an example as well on where something can go very well or go wrong. So, what are nerfs? That's the first thing we're going to talk about today. Well, let us go to our perfect, wonderful, amazing article or art response made by a gentleman by the name of David Michael. Systems analyst, 3.4 million content views. Nice. Shout out to this gentleman here for writing this wonderful post. So a gentleman by the name of Jason McDonald at one point in Quora posted 12 years ago about like how nerfing, I guess asking about how nerfing works and all that. He just made a comment post, and then under there someone had made a question asking, what does a nerf mean when talking about video games? And, I can easily discuss, what a nerf is on a baseline, but I guess this goes a little more literal. So we'll read this through and we'll kind of have a little bit of fun as we go on forward, because this will kind of be an evolving experience for, I think, for people who are very aware of the subject and some people who might not be as aware as they think they are. And honestly, I'm probably going to learn some things too as I make this video or as I'm, like looking into this. So yeah. So what is a nerf? All right, based on this comment, let's say you play a first-person shooter, Halo, COD, Overwatch. Yeah, we know about that one. Doesn't matter. You have a gun. Is your favorite gun? Perhaps you gave it an identity, like Noob Slayer 69, or perhaps the D4 Badinator. I gotta stop. Anyways, he calls this one Vera because it sounds like a cool name for a gun. Anyways, there's nothing more that you enjoy than logging in and annihilating your enemies. None will stand in the might of Vera, and with a cool little combination between your skill and the might of the weapon, it will get the job done. It gets it done very well. Then, one day you log in and you find a bane of all overpowered weapons. Patch notes. Okay, I didn't read this full thing actually. I read like this like top part up till it gets done well. You scroll down. Hopefully, you pray that you and your beloved Vera have been spared, but alas, Buried among inconsequential details is one jarring line. Vera's damage has been reduced by 99%. You log in and discover that your beloved Vera is now completely worthless. You fire it, the enemy says, fuck you to your bullets. And no matter how you assault them, what your approach is, you try different things, they laugh at your pathetic assault. In an absolute frustration, you stand and you scream. What is this? It feels like I'm using a Nerf gun. Oh, this is just a phone gun, or just a phone, really, which has my Twitch chat here. Yeah, I'm really out of ideas, honestly. Forgive me. So, yeah, it is a Nerf gun. So, yeah, it just goes further, you know, being like, that a Nerf is any change of weakens. Interesting than this one, though. It is believed to have originated in the game Ultima Online. All right. So now that we kind of know what a Nerf is, let's talk a little bit about what I guess Wikipedia views into the sense of game balance. So Wikipedia has a nice little article about game balance, which hopefully hasn't been edited a billion times, regarding some specific terms that revolve it. So it'll be like game elements, mechanics, buffs and nerfs, ha 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 ha, overpowered and underpowered, GIMP, revamp. Okay, so you guys get the gist of it. There's different terminology that when it comes to game balance, not just nerfs or buffs. Buffs usually just, I guess, and nerfs kind of revolve around like the changing state of a given mechanic in game balance. So like a revamp could be a buff or a nerf. If you're revamping something to be better, it could be worse. So on and so forth. Then it goes a little further, talking about, you know, chance, difficulty, and dynamic and static balance, just when it comes to essential concepts of balancing. Economy is also a really, really important one. Funny example about a really, really big shatter in economic balance in a video game is Path of Exile right now with the Necropolis League. I don't want to get into too much detail, but just know that the economy did get really, really screwed up in this crafting league for a multitude of different reasons because of exploits and so on and so forth. But again, different discussion for a different day. And then of course, the end of it mostly sometimes being, well, let's see. All right, that's different. Fairness, and then I guess how it contributes to, you know, decisions made and metagame. Every time I feel like I'm going to finish this, I end up going somewhere else. Anyways, just the point. As I mentioned before, there are very, very important aspects when considering this kind of topic, because there's a lot that goes in hand. It's not just about nerfing a gun or nerfing an ability. A lot of things have to be considered. So let's talk about some examples. I think a very important discussion that isn't really said enough about nerfs in games is that there is such a thing as a good nerf. They can exist. It's just that in our subjective eyes, and mine included, about 95% of nerfs are just terrible. We don't want them. We think they ruin the fun of the game, and sometimes they do, and a lot of the times they do. Sometimes they do. But sometimes they're necessary. And we'll go into a little bit of detail on that one, of course. So let's talk real quick, and I'm going to actually go over some memes as well. You know, haha, little nerf meme here. Still nerf. Oh, this is just literal nerf, so let's just get rid of that. Okay. So, when are nerfs good? This one is a bit of a odd conversation. In my opinion, nerfs are good whenever the state of the game is like in jeopardy. And what I mean by that is a nerf is usually in some ways inherently good, provided two things. One, the identity of whatever you're nerfing isn't completely neutered. That's thing number one. Number two is obviously if this one thing, you know, weapon or ability or whatever, stands out way too much in the grand scheme of things, and whether it's because of a scaling issue that it's impossible to buff the other items too, and it still wouldn't be enough to balance this meta of whatever weapon or ability we're using, then I can understand Nerf as well. I'm going to give a weirdly weird example of it, although it's not the best example because I have to blame Bungie for this. Destiny 2. Now, we're not going to be here to talk about the Whisper nerf. I know everybody hates that, it is what it is. Or the G-Horn nerf, or the Eyes of fucking Tomorrow nerf that I will never fucking acknowledge is non-existent, because it definitely is. But one example I like to bring up is Witherhoard. Now, why do I bring up Witherhoard? For several reasons. Now, context for Witherhoard. Witherhoard, if you guys don't know, is a grenade launcher that fires a little blight-based projectile. It does damage over time. And damage over time in Destiny is really, really important. It's a very strong mechanic, so on and so forth. So, one issue with Destiny 2 as a game is that sometimes certain damage over time effects, such as blights, or even like scorch and like ignition damage in some sources, are programmed really, really poorly to the point where it only registers for a single person. The Deathbringer rocket launcher also has this issue. Technically, Deathbringer at some point, I think during the VOG era, I don't know about now, should have been hypothetically one of, if not the best DPS option for weapons, and just completely with a catalyst. The issue with that not being the case, however, is because Deathbringer can only register, or at least the game can only register a set amount of projectiles on the screen all at once. So as a result, if 6 people are using Deathbringer, you're effectively throwing. And what that ends up doing is you're just kind of wasting everybody's time. So your Deathbringer is best when there's like 1 or 2 people using it, because then the game can actually register that amount of projectiles and apply damage numbers consistently. Disregard what your damage numbers might say. If it says you're hitting the damage but you're not, know that this is happening. So why do I say that Witherhoard is a good nerf? Well, because Witherhoard, when it came out, did not actually have this issue. You could stack the damage over time. But again, it's good because it prevented something really bad. This is bad because it's kind of Bungie's fault. But again, that's for later. What was happening with Witherhoard when it first came out, and I'm going to show a little clip here. Let me... Hold on. Okay. Witherhoard versus Raid bosses. Okay, so one example that I can give for you guys is that, hold on a minute. When Witherhoard first came out, it was an issue with the game that because the game at that moment was actually, for Witherhoard specifically, registering all different types of damage over time procs. What was happening was the game could not keep with all the scaling and damage, and as a result, Witherhoard was effectively one-shotting every single thing in existence. This was a bug with the weapon, and it was a fun bug, but ultimately, if you had at least one brain cell, you should have known that this needed to be a nerf. It needed to happen. And again, I will show what I'm referring to right here. Look at how this happens. So this is a little Callus run. I know I miss this content. Done.
Okay, dude.
See that? We'll go a little further though. I want y'all to see how quickly some of these other ones fall off. I think Argos is a good one too. And just spamming the horde. Fuck them. Okay. But also, fuck you.
45k. I got 630k.
Where'd you shoot? I got 630k.
See, and as you can see, they're saying that they're getting damage numbers on their Witherhoard. You hear that? They're saying, well, I got 630k. It's not appearing on Sweat's screen for whenever he's shooting the weapon. So that's what I'm saying is like, this weapon was actually so broken that they had to tune it back down towards having the damage over time only work for one person because of this issue. That's, I guess, an example of like a really good nerf. One other example I can think about would maybe be, I know people hate to say it. What was it? So the initial Whisper nerf with the ammo, I know is something that people don't like to talk about a lot. It wasn't healthy for the game, but it was somewhat understandable with it having a literal infinite source of ammo. Now, it didn't help that several seasons later, they proceeded to neuter sniper damage to the round, so that even if it had infinite ammo, that it still wouldn't have done anything. But like, that's another weird example I could probably bring up. Again, not the most popular example to show out, but I think Witherhoard's like the best one. So what are some examples of bad nerfs? Because we've been doing some talking about like some good nerfs, I guess. So what is the Rye, aka Aria's definition of bad nerfs? Bad nerfs, there's a lot of criteria for actually, and it revolves around the following. Fun, and fun are the first three. Not the most important, but they are the first three. The others have really to do with the other factors that can lead to what makes a nerf a bad nerf is if you're nerfing something just because you don't want to balance other things to be better. Now, that's a bit of a gray area. Like I gave an example before, if something is literally so good because of like a multiplicative scale that no amount of buffing something else would make it keep up, then I understand that. It's understandable. Another bad example. So moving forward on that, bad balancing is a problem with bad nerfs in that sense too. So like I said, so if you have to nerf something just to keep it in line with bad options, then that doesn't make the versatility of using anything any better. It just makes everything really shitty to use. That's thing number one. Aspect number two, this was just in my head just a second ago. Yes. When a nerf changes the identity of a item or weapon too much. So like one example I have of like a type of nerf I don't like is if you like nerf the RPM of a weapon way too much. A weapon you've already understood the feel of, and you didn't really attune to the range either or change the stability, but you just like change RPM of. That's a bad nerf in my opinion. Because again, you're messing with the identity of the weapon, like what it is known for. And if you want to tune it down in other ways, then it's kind of understandable. But then you have to also sort of skill other things to compensate as well, for better or for worse. The biggest killer for me on what makes nerfs bad, and Destiny 2 is a really bad offender of this in my casual opinion. Helldivers is more on the fun side of problems, but again, that's more subjective. Is when a nerf happens and yet whatever you're using is still used because everything else is just bad. And that mostly happens because of game design. So what's an example I can think of? So I didn't participate in this day one raid, but the best example I can have just from watching like a buddy of mine attempt to do it with his extremely hyper sweaty team. Day one Crota for Destiny 2. Now, why do I bring day one Crota up specifically? Very simple. The best way that you could damage Crota was with a sword, Lament. What's the problem with Lament? One, its tracking fucking sucks. It was not something that was ever nerfed to my knowledge, but still, like, the tracking is bad. So that's design flaw number one, okay? Design flaw number two. The boss can effectively just one-shot you at like full health, as far as I'm concerned, even in a well, with high resilience. So that's issue number two, which I guess could be intentional. It is what it is. And then example number three, again, just overall encounter design. So where am I going with this? So you were kind of damned because Lament had really good damage output, had good burst damage especially. So what you would do with Day 1 Crota is you would get a bunch of people with Lament, I think Tractor as well, and do damage to him in a well. Here's the problem though. Oh my god, guys, well is too strong. We have to nerf it. Which the first couple, maybe one time or so, I can kind of get. Like me might say it's the overshield's way too overpowerful, or whatever. You might say it's too safe an option. But the problem with the constant nerfing of Well of Radiance is that if you don't balance the encounters around the game properly, you're not going to make people not use Well. By nerfing Well, you're going to make more people need to run it. And what that's going to do is going to inflate your statistics on the amount of people still using this super. It's like a snake eating its own tail. An example again, I'm going to bring up with my buddy of mine who could not beat Day 1 Crota in these conditions. They had 5 wells ready and a bubble titan to try and beat Crota because the hive boomers that they would try to kill kept one-shotting them in the well and also destroying the well. So the well was destroyed, they needed someone else to put another one, and then another one, and then another one. So you can see where that gets very annoying. And again, you gotta sword them to really do effective damage to them on day 1. Why? Not sure. You can't really use ranged weapons against Crota, but you're also kind of damned because if you get too close to them, well, you just kind of have to eat shit. Another really bad example, in my opinion, on a bad nerf encounter-wise or design-wise was the initial sniper nerf in Season of Dawn in Destiny 2. Sorry, it wasn't Season of Dawn. It was Season of the Worthy, or as I call Season of the Worthless. Why? Because they guttered every single legendary and exotic sniper to the ground for the damage. Not to mention the Izzy reload thing, but that's a whole different story. Which, in hindsight, you could say, well, yeah, snipers are way too overpowered. They're way too strong because literally everybody just uses snipers. They're too safe. And I could sit there and agree with you on that. But the issue with that argument is that when the majority of the raid bosses you have in the game are bosses that you could only really use a sniper on because either A, you can't reach them with a close range weapon, or even B, they'll just stomp you, propelling you to a wall, or one-shotting you or whatever, you can't use close range weapons. So what are you supposed to do? And that's, I guess, when I think the nerf has really hit its worst, is when you're looking at all your other options and you're thinking, God, shit, what am I supposed to do now? There's a barrier, I can't fucking go there and sword him. I can't shotgun him. Or it's contest. He'll stop me to death. I have to use this ranged weapon. Everybody's using ranged weapons. Guys, snipers are too strong. I gotta nerf them again. Again, I'm not against the inherent nerf itself. It's all the context and lack of context, rather, that comes with the nerfs in hand. So, in retrospect, that's kind of like what I think makes a bad nerf. Now, are some ways to kind of work on this? I think I'll have an idea on that, but I don't want to talk about that idea in a Destiny 2 perspective. I want to go more into the Helldivers side, where, my God, we have dealt with some crazy nerfs. And gaslighting among the Discord community as well, on both sides, mind you. So real quick, let's talk about Helldivers 2, because that's kind of what I really wanted to get on with this game. Now, why do I think the nerfs are happening in Helldivers 2? So we can go with the generic reasons, Arrowhead doesn't want us to have fun, which, I don't think that's inherently true, but now, can I say they're very bad at balancing? Yeah, I could probably say that. I think that there are some things they did that should be balanced, but then there are some things that are just completely unnecessary, or just way too overdone. And I'll get into some examples of that too. But why do I personally think that nerfs happen in this game? And I think the reason why I think they happen is because they very much fear the label of pay to win. Now, why do I say that? It's because this game has premium war bonds where you can unlock special weapons. Some of those weapons are very strong. And yes, if you want to upgrade to the war bond, you could pay $10 to get it. Or you could simply, try and grind out all the super credits you can. And I don't think it's a horrendous grind to get super credits. Some people say it's pretty decent. Some say it's not. I think you can get anywhere from like a range of like 10 to like 30, maybe 40 super credits. I've gotten 100 in some random runs too. So I think personally, Arrowhead, if you're watching this and your fear of why you're nerfing things is because of pay to win fear, I don't think you should worry about it too much because of several things. One, if I'm gonna grind to get the premium war bond for free, if I were to buy it, I will need to grind the medals anyways, right? So if I need to grind the medals anyways, at that point, I will have played the game so much, I would have had enough medals to not only have the appropriate super credits, but I will also have enough medals to also, in hindsight, what is the phrase I'm looking for? Yes, to unlock everything on the war bond. So if you are worried about this, my dear fellow moderators at Arrowhead Studios or developers, sorry, you could maybe make it a little bit easier to get the super credits, possibly. I think that might be a good idea. And I say that because there are so many people in the Helldivers 2 community that will literally buy the premium war bond for money, even though they easily have even grinded for the super credits already. Why? Because they believe in supporting a good game. So as long as the game is really, really good, I personally love Helldivers 2. But if the game is really, really good, it's very strong, then people will spend the money. Now, you might see a bit of a reduction, but I would argue that you still have a pretty good amount. Because again, like in the first couple cycles of the first 2 or 3 war bonds that came out, people were saying, I have 1,000 super credits and I'm still gonna buy the war bond. I will love supporting good games. I love supporting good devs. So you guys have a very dedicated premium war bond purchasing fan base. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, about the pay to win part, because one, you have people that will just buy it regardless. And you have the people that can easily grind for it. And if you don't think the grind is well enough, then, tune up the amount of super credits just a slight bit. You don't have to go crazy and give us 100 every time, but maybe just drop maybe just buff the spawn chance, I guess, of the super credit acquisition, although maybe it is already really high and I just don't know about it. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm okay, because again, I've heard a lot of people say that is totally fine. And with that regard though, please don't worry about it if that's the case. So Helldivers nerfs. Recently, I know that there has been quite some controversy around some of the nerfs on Helldivers 2, particularly, for example, like with the Quasar cannon, it got like an extra 5 seconds of overheat time. Some of the weapons like the Eruptor got a mag size nerf and all that. Now, these don't really feel fun, personally. And I understand that you guys have to balance things out, but you, again, by making kind of everything this base level of mediocre. The music went off. Hold on one second.
Oh, so is this your ranch stream now?
By the way, guys, Mr. Awesome just joined. Now I'm just making a small little stream / video that I'm going to upload about my sort of discussion on nerfs and buffs in gaming. And the context I'm giving people is there is such a thing as good nerfs and there's bad nerfs. So good nerfs are if something is so broken that it threatens the balance of the game, or that if buffing everything else won't do anything because of scaling issues, as an example of a good nerf. A bad nerf is if you nerf something so badly, but if the design of the game is centered around using that one thing, you end up making more people use it by nerfing it. Thus, your statistics are flawed inherently. At least that's what I think.
I mean, I don't know, man. You got to keep the game interesting. I mean, could you imagine how redundant it would be if the game was just the same the entire time?
Oh no, you're not wrong about that, but that's where I say that like sometimes I'm gonna play this song again. That's where I say that like you need to sort of have like a balance of maintaining the identity of an item or a weapon, if that makes any sense.
I mean, yeah, I get what you mean.
And so right now I'm at the part where I'm talking about like Helldivers 2 specifically, on how I think that maybe the devs are worried about they're focusing too much on not giving it a pay to win label, and that's why they've been just nerfing all the weapons and all the stratagems to just kind of be like equal. Now I have some solutions for that might make it a bit more endearing. One of them would be to actually change the balance of your game in terms of its environment. So one example I'll give is that the sickle got its amount of magazines down from 6 to 3. It's an energy weapon, I think, right? So it has like infinite ammo, it has like a heat sink, yeah.
Think
Now-
of it as like a Clone Wars blaster.
Yeah, now 6 to 3 is kind of overkill in my opinion. I know you can be a little careful for it, but having only 3, especially in crazier fights, is a little rough. The Quasar Cannon, having a 5-second cooldown is very extra cooldown is annoying. Now 2 seconds I would have been probably okay with, but I'm just nitpicking because I'm biased. So
Yeah, you love that gun.
I do.
I
Now
love the shit out of it.
I know what you're saying. Arya or Rye, Quasar's OP, Sickle's also OP. If you think these are bad nerfs, what would you do? Well, again, this is the part where I go into the sort of uncharted territory of Fantasyland. So this is not necessarily the most applicable, but maybe if you kind of steer into this direction, it might help you out. So one thing you could do is we have a new faction coming potentially, Helldivers 2, called the Illuminate. It's no secret.
How
It's in the
long has it
files.
been teased, do you know?
Honestly, who knows? But regardless,
Teased for a while.
the Illuminate are a thing. Also, in Helldivers 2, the most overpowered weapons right now are like the energy or plasma weapons and all that, so on and so forth. So one idea I've thought about with nerfing those weapons is to give the Illuminate, or some like the higher elites in the Illuminate, like mirror armor. Now I know that they're aliens and all that, so it's not really doable, but I'm just saying in concept. Have like an enemy type or enemy faction that has like mirror armor that like literally just deflects the laser projectile. So if I fire a quasar shot, that shit will just bounce right back to me. Now I know what you're saying. You're feeding the problem even further, because now those things are just going to be absolutely terrible for those kinds of encounters, right? Nobody will ever run a quasar cannon ever again in those encounters. And some people might say that's good. I don't think it personally is. But a counter idea. If the energy weapons are so good that no one's using the primary weapons or the primary ammo weapons, and the primary ammo weapons are so bad that the energy weapons are being used too much, I literally just said the same thing twice, then what you need to do is mix up the gunplay between the two. So if they have mirror armor, then maybe we shouldn't be using laser projectiles, we should be using piercing and bludgeoning projectiles. So have regular weapons like a normal liberator, or like liberator penetrator or adjudicator or whatever. Use those weapons to like break like the mirror or the mirror shield or whatever the armor is they have, and then you can like kind of finish it all with an energy weapon. I think that adds some versatility to the gameplay personally. Also, I mean, you don't think it'd be funny to see someone just like shoot an Illuminate commander? Or I think they have like they have like a mage or whatever that's like hovering on some device. He just popped a shield that just deflects a quasar cannon back into your whole team. And then the amount of reward the amount of like reward and satisfaction a player would get from discovering, wait, there's a workaround on this. Actually, this weapon is really effective. I just have to be smarter on how I deal with it.
And pray it works.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's all trial and error, right? So this isn't a
What's the
perfect.
JonTron thing?
Oh yeah, if you do it right, and you don't fuck it up, it works. It just works. Yeah. So
How it goes with the Quasar
Yeah.
Cannon.
yeah. So that's sort of like my ideas. Like maybe actually don't take a page out of the things that Destiny 2 doesn't do. Change the balance of your game a little bit in terms of the environment. Now, that is a very hard thing to do, and I'm very aware of that. So I'm not saying you have to do all of it right away, but slow and gradual changes aren't too bad. You can either do it with specific enemy types, or you could make one thing I'd like actually that Helldivers 2 does is that certain weapons actually are somewhat more effective or somewhat less effective in like hot or cold planets, but if you're smart you can still use them. So like I think like weapons that use heat sinks, they overheat faster in hot planets, but you can still use them. You just got to be smarter about them, how you use them. And then same with like cold planets, you can use them even more.
I'd say, like, if you're gonna be using a laser weapon, the sickle is nice. If I had to give like my top 3 guns,
I know you love that Scorcher.
the Scorcher, dude, the Plasma Scorcher, great. Anyone who plays Helldivers, get the Scorcher.
All right, don't stop. They're gonna nerf it. Stop.
Huh?
They're gonna nerf it if you keep telling us how good it is. I'm kidding.
I don't think that's gonna happen because, like, could you
Honestly, it would have probably happened by now. I'm gonna. I just knocked on some imitation wood. But I mean,
that's basically what happened to the Breaker, which Breaker was great. Oh my god, the Breaker.
I mean, it can still be used. You use it pretty well, as far as what you've been telling me. So
yeah.
there's that.
It does its job, but I mean, the Scorcher kind of really did just like.
Yeah, it just goes through the roof.
It is.
Yeah. So,
hard not
like
to
I
use
said,
it.
so long story short, there are good nerfs, there are bad nerfs. Those are some ideas I have on how you could like balance it out in a sense. Other ways you could do it is like you don't have to directly nerf something, but you could just rely on a little bit of power creep, but power creep also has a bit of a negative connotation around it. And I think that if you go the power creep route too much, then I think that would contribute more to people saying that the game is pay to win, if that's the fear you have, more than the actual grind to get the war bonds. So yeah, that's the end of this video. If you guys are watching on Twitch on the stream, leave a follow. Let's know y'all want to see more of the content. If you're on YouTube and you watch my upload of this video, if you like this video, leave a comment, leave a like as well. Let me know how you feel and consider subscribing to the channel. It also lets me know there that y'all want to see more. And I hope to see y'all later. Peace out and take care. Goodbye.